So this is Insight FireWave tutorial number 11, and this will be a demonstration on how to set up a translator and one expander with one child device on each of the modules. So this will be a step-by-step instruction on how to actually set these up and get these functioning with each other. So first of all, we open up the FireWave configurator software. We go to File, New System. We give each translator or CIM a separate system code, anywhere between 1 and 255. This is in hex. We also had to give each CIM and translator a separate channel from 1 to 7, especially if they're in close proximity to each other. So I'm just going to accept all of the defaults and say OK. Then I need to go to the System tab and right click and go down to Add Central Node. In this case, we're adding a WTM, a wireless translator module. Select Add, say OK to all the default settings. I then going to select the WTM and right click and then select Add RSM EXP AS, which is our expander module. I'm just going to accept all of the defaults, say OK. Then I'm going to right click on my translator module again and add a child device. In this case, we're going to select the heat detector. I'm just going to add the quantity 1 and then say OK. I'm going to accept all of the default settings for this heat detector, say OK. Now I need to select the expander, right click that, select Add Child Device. We're going to add a call point onto the expander. I select quantity 1 and say Next. I'm going to accept all of the default settings and say OK. Now we've added all of our devices to our configuration tree. So now I've got an expander with a call point learnt onto the translator module, and on the translator module I have a child device learnt onto it. So the next thing I need to do is I need to make sure my lead is plugged in from my PC to my translator module onto the 232 serial port. I go to Options and then Settings, make sure my COM port's set up OK. Then I go to my translator, right click and say Program. This will send up the system code and the channel and all of the devices that we're going to have onto the system. It will say Successful Programming, say OK. So you notice now that the translator icon has now gone dark grey. That's just telling us that the two configurations, the one inside the translator and here on the actual configurator software, are now both the same. They're actually synced. Okay, so before you actually do the expander, what it's advisable to do is actually just go on and learn the child devices onto the translator first. So select your translator, right click, and now start to add all of your child devices. In this case, we're just going to add a smoke detector, so we need to bring it online. So we right click, go local programming and say program child device. It will then get the translator into a receive mode, so we now need to grab the heat detector in this case. We need to ensure that we have the primary battery placed in. We need to ensure that the switch is in the 1 position. Then we move it from the 1 position to the on position. We get our primary battery and insert that. We'll have 4 red flashes. We then turn it back over and move the switch back to the 1 position and observe the green LED flashes. And on the screen you'll notice it now says Successful Programming. You'll also notice there's a positive symbol, and that's telling us that it's now online and is connected to the translator module. So then what we need to do is we need to tell the translator it's all online. So we right click the translator and say Program. And that's now the translator dealt with. So the next bit is the expander. So we need to select the expander. But you'll notice that at this point in time there is no system code. It doesn't know the system code, it doesn't know the channel, there is no comms between the two modules, between the translator and the expander. So what we need to do is we need to get this system code inside the expander first of all. So our very first communication with it is by plugging the lead from the translator into the expander to be able to first program it with the remote, with the system code. So we select the expander, right click and say program. Now you may find if you're using an expander that's already been used and it has a system code in it, you get that error message. If you do get that, just simply say OK, then select the translator. Again, right click and go down to restore expander. And all this will do is it just wipe out the current system code that's currently in there and will clear it back down to factory default, which will then allow you to then program the expander with the new system code that you're hoping to send up to it. So once the expander is clean, we just say OK, then again right click the expander, program the expander, and this time because there's no system code currently in there, it will accept this system code that we're sending to it. Wonderful, and say OK. Now you see it's gone dark grey, it's telling us it knows about the child devices and the configuration is synced. We now need to bring the call point online, so we select the call point, right click and say local programming. It's local programming because we actually had the lead plugged into the expander at this point. So say program child device, it will go into its receive mode, it's ready to receive an incoming signal from a new device. We then get the call point, we then make sure the secondary battery is in and the switch is in the 1 position. We then move the switch from the 1 to the on position. We insert the primary battery and watch for the 4 red LED flashes. We then move the switch back to the 1 position and watch the green flashes, and on the screen it will say successful programming. We say OK, and you'll notice the minus symbol has now gone to a positive and it's telling us that it's all online. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to tell the expander everything's OK and it's all online. So we right click and go to program expander. We say OK. Then we move the lead from the expander to the translator. Right click the translator and say program. Okay, so now that we have 2 devices online, we have an expander, a translator, and 2 child devices, 1 learnt on each module. Don't forget, for more information regarding the FireWave product and for further video tutorials, you can check out the Insight website, which can be found at www.insightfire.com.au. We'll see you soon.